There aren't many better ways to capture a moment in time than taking a great photo. But how do you do this when that moment passes in the blink of an eye and the photo you took comes out super blurry? Or what if you want to capture a sense of movement in a photo, but you don't want it to look like one giant smear? This is where knowing how to properly adjust your camera's shutter speed can be the key to getting your shots perfect. Along with aperture and ISO, which we previously covered here on TechWiki, shutter speed is one of the 3 key exposure variables that will affect how a picture looks. Shutter speed is simply a measure of how long the camera's, you guessed it, shutter stays open to let light through. Unlike aperture, which is a measure of how wide the shutter opens, and ISO, which controls the sensitivity to light, the shutter speed directly affects how long the camera will physically see whatever it's pointed at. Meaning that if you have 2 cameras pointing at the same moving object, but with significantly different shutter speeds, the 2 pictures will come out looking dramatically different. Why is this? Well, if you have your camera set to a slow shutter speed, the shutter will be open long enough to capture a fast-moving object traveling from one place to another. And since you're recording a still image, not a video, which is comprised of multiple still images, this will just come out as a blur. A fast shutter speed, on the other hand, will open and close so quickly that you won't see much motion at all. Just like it's harder for you to perceive something as actually moving if you open and shut your eyes very, very quickly. So the result then is a frozen moment captured in the photo without blurring. Now, typically shutter speeds are measured in fractions of a second, with speeds between 1/60th of a second and 1/250th of a second being common for everyday photography, such as landscape shots or casual portraits of your friends. But what if you're getting shots of something like a basketball game where the players are running up and down the court, or you're doing nature photography and need to capture a fast-moving bird or wildcat? This is where much quicker shutter speeds come in handy to prevent blurring. And higher-end cameras can have shutter speeds as quick as 1/4000th or 1/8000th of a second. And some highly specialized cameras can even handle 1/16,000th of a setting that can capture really cool shots, like a bullet as it travels through the air. Well, hold on a second then. Are fast shutter times always the best thing then? Well, although slow shutter speeds can produce undesirable blur in some situations, in others they can produce really cool effects that you just can't get any other way. Have you ever seen those shots of cities at night where highway traffic just looks like long red and white streaks? Those were produced by using long shutter speeds of 2 seconds or even longer. Because while things like buildings and street signs will stay in one place, the cars are obviously moving, meaning that you can get those cool light streaks without making the city around them look blurry. Slow shutter speeds are also useful for making waterfalls look like they're moving without affecting the rest of the photo, and even showing the movement of stars across the night sky, where a shutter might be open for hours at a time. Just make sure you're using a really stable tripod or something else to keep your camera in one place so that final shot looks crisp and sharp. Another thing to keep in mind is that shutter speed affects the amount of light hitting your image sensor. So make sure that you're adjusting your ISO and your aperture to compensate if you're going to be experimenting with really fast or really slow shutter speed.